Our ancestors had to struggle every day to get food, to get a shelter. And it was a question of saving energy to survive, to really reach the next day. In a sense, the brains that we have nowadays are still in the same mood. They love to save energy and not to put off a lot of effort. There's a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. There's a small, lovely story about this little girl who wants to become a professional swimmer. She trains hard every day. Every time she reaches the end of the pool and of her training session, she says to herself, "Ooh, this was hard. This was exhaustive. I love it." Notice the perspective. Notice how she talks about the effort. You can get there too. If you train it, you have to train it, this perspective, but you can and should develop this perspective as well. Now you say to me, well, I don't love working. I hate working actually. And this is not true. And here's the proof. You certainly have hobbies which involve activities which are stressful for other people. For example, you're reading, let's say, science fiction novels. Other people would not do it. They would find it very stressful to read for several hours about this topic. Another way of thinking is to put it in another context. For example, reading your favorite novel versus reading stuff for college or for school. It's essentially the same. You read something and you have to understand it for several minutes or hours. It's more or less the same, but in another context, it's stress versus it's more lovable. Or you have a cell phone with a lot of apps where you have to solve riddles and puzzles, like Sudoku. Compare it to solving math problems in your school. More or less, it's the same thing, solving riddles, but in another context, it's lovable or not lovable. Now, there are two reasons why something feels not nice or bad. Reason number one, it's too boring and dull. Reason number two, it's too strenuous. And there are two general solutions. You either adapt the task or you adapt your thoughts about the task. Number one is to adapt the task. If a task is boring, make it more interesting. If a task is strenuous, make it easier. For example, you have to write a report of 2 pages. It's overwhelming. It would take, 2-3 hours. It's too strenuous, too stressful, too much effort that you imagine about the task. Divide it into small paragraphs. And each paragraph, just concentrate on a small, simple paragraph. It's easy, it's manageable. You can write a paragraph. Then write the next one, the next one, the next one. Small steps, every one of these steps is achievable and not overwhelming. If the task is too boring, get creative and invent a challenge. I don't know your task, but oftentimes it's, for example, using the other hand, the left hand, to do the task. It will be a challenge, it will be much more fun. Or other ways to adapt the task. And ideally, you make a task that difficult or easy that you get really kindled and that motivation surges after a while. It's a challenge. You're not overwhelmed and not underwhelmed. You really want to do it. It's a challenge. And in best case, you're getting into flow because you master the challenge and get a positive feedback. This increases your motivation a bit. Then the next small task, which is a small challenge, you master it and you get a positive feedback. And over time, you can get into flow. So you want to look again into the chapter about flow. Now, the other thing you can do is to adapt your thoughts and your emotions. Train to have beneficial thoughts. First of all, observe your thoughts. Usually you think something like, "Oh my God, it's so boring. Oh my God, I hate it. It's so stressful." Leave out these thoughts and replace them with more beneficial thoughts. Think about the positive aspects of your task at hand. There are always positive aspects, and you can always switch your thoughts and concentrate on something different. If you exchange your thoughts, then your feelings will follow. You will develop positive emotion. And it's possible to turn something that you don't like slowly after time into passion. by simple repeating it, repeating and repeating and repeating it. It's becoming simpler, and if you also change your constant thoughts about this task, you can actually develop a passion about it.